Hi, this is Stephanie Miller from The Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from my show on Political Voices Network. Let's talk about your last book, They Want to Kill Americans, because I know we are so numb to it. It's so normalized, Malcolm, but this Marjorie Taylor Greene and Trump saying Biden tried to assassinate, Trump because there was a boilerplate FBI search warrant executed at Mar-a-Lago. Oh, he just got up and left.
Where did he go?
I think he's going to get
you know what?
going to get some.
I got some water
prop.
because stupid things like this make me drink.
I mean, Ellie Honig, among other legal analysts, said, this is ridiculous. There's nothing to see here. I looked even at specifically what they're talking about. If you look at the search warrant documentation, this is a standard form. It's page 11 of a sheet. It gives the FBI the generally acknowledged standard for use of lethal force. It appears in every search warrant, every operational plan, every ops plan. There is nothing to this. The notion that there's something dangerous wrong, I'm hesitant to even dignify the assassination talk by mentioning it, but it's completely out of line. But what it can do is incite violence against Biden and other, officials, right?
Well, the funny thing about this is these are people who came there, right, with the intent to overthrow the government. And now they see every vehicle and instrument of the government which has been used forever against people of color, right? People who are against their, violence and things like that. Protesters in various places. Standard template, boilerplate documents that say you cannot draw down a weapon on an FBI officer or there will be consequences is suddenly seen in, cloud cuckoo land as being a vast government experience. And I'm sorry to say it, I have been studying this for decades. To this particular nutty cult class of white person, everything is a conspiracy against them.
Yeah.
Everything. Every vehicle of government they've used to harm and suppress people is now suddenly against them because it involves people who look like Donald Trump, fat, corpulent, out of shape, and they now want to dismantle that until next year if they win, because we have young people who are saying they'd rather not vote for Biden and allow this to come in where they will actually assassinate people, where they will use the instrument of government against you. You like the way I threw that little warning in there?
Oh, yeah, I did. A little shouty and then a little shouty Michelle face. Yeah. Obviously, a lot going on with the Middle East. So, what's the other? Hang on, hold please. Kept a couple stories for you. Hold on.
The Ireland one, or
Yeah, Spain and Ireland.
and Norway.
In Norway, pardon me, have announced they will formally recognize a Palestinian state. Malcolm, help me here. Why is that bad? Because Israel reacted angrily, saying the move will bring more stability in the region, recalling its ambassadors from all three countries. They said this was a decision was not against Israel or in favor of Hamas, but rather in support of peace. This just continues to be such a difficult issue. Can you just talk to us a little bit about where we're at with this and what the president said?
First off, Spain, Ireland, and Norway have been the most vocal anti-Israel countries in Europe. Look, I lived in Spain for almost a decade. It's not like you can't find all the vestiges of them wiping the Jews out during the Reconquista and the Muslims. So, but Ireland has this contrarian streak in them where these people are rabid, considering that it was a country formed on terrorism and by terrorism and civil war. And then on the other hand, you have Norway, which sees themselves as sort of the kumbaya peacenik version of Scandinavia. But by recognizing a Palestinian state, you would have to first recognize, I don't know, some place called Palestine, of which there is none. There is no place called Palestine. There has never been a Palestinian state. And what they're doing is giving recognition to a diaspora of people that go from Michigan to Kuwait City to Beirut to Cairo.
Right.
So what is it? So who is the leadership of this Palestinian state? And by giving them these resources, you're now saying you're going to channel resources of the United Nations and NGOs to people. Awesome. I think that's great. But as we've seen just recently in the Rafah operations, Hamas has been seizing virtually all of the aid and redistributing it to people that they want to see not starve, not to the average Palestinian.
Yeah.
So, hurrah, they feel like they've done something wonderful for themselves. Virtue signaling is awesome. But, like many of these tent protests, it does not actually help the people who need help.
Yeah. So obviously, we talked about The Hague and Netanyahu. I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you saw, he was interviewed on MSNBC, and he said, well, that's ridiculous. That would be like, after 9/11, going after, charging bin Laden and George W. Bush. Well, I always said George W. Bush, I think, was what's the word, responsible for the massive, for the incompetence, the massive intelligence failure that happened on his watch of 9/11, much like Netanyahu was responsible for a massive intelligence failure that he failed to stop on October 7th. And still nobody, by the way, Malcolm, has been able to answer for me, where was the Israeli military on October 7th? Why did it take, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours?
Let me reel you in a little bit.
All right.
Because
I'm focused just on Netanyahu's incompetence first, and then we'll get to the rest of it. But go ahead.
First off, Netanyahu's incompetent. And I've said on this show many times, he should have resigned in the first hour.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. He failed in the number one job of an Israeli prime minister, which is the defense of his people.
Yep.
But let's talk about where the Israeli army was. Up to 3,000 Hamas terrorists entered the country and were fighting all over the place. I came back from 6 weeks in Israel. I have studied the attacks down there on 10/7. I even have some of Hamas's battle flags. But then 6,000 civilians came in and started stealing whatever they wanted. The Israeli army responded immediately. But this is almost like the entirety of Texas, right? The entire Texas, let's say, Mexican border at war. It took hours for major heavy forces to come down there. But there was one group of people that were already there, right? The 8 women tank drivers in the IDF that went right to the border and for 8 hours battled nonstop hundreds of Hamas terrorists. Every person with a rifle in southern Israel went down there. It was a war. They battled down there, person to person, rifle to rifle. So it took 8 hours to get it under control. But no one abandoned southern Israel. But I do blame Netanyahu for removing 2 brigades off that border into the West Bank in order to support more settlements.
Thank you.
So he failed at that too.
There it is, my first drink of the day, Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic. Many of you know my story. I stopped drinking wine for 3 years during COVID, during the lockdown as part of a health reset. Now I drink wine in moderation, but this is an amazing new product. I've always believed in probiotics. And Z-Biotics, check this out. You drink just one of these. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. I am using this and I feel great in the morning. I don't have to worry if I have an extra glass of wine, I still feel great in the morning. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. I've always had acid reflux problems. It is this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. All I know is it works. It is Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic. Go to zbiotics.com/politicalvoices or scan the QR code on the screen right now.